Hello, and welcome to No Sleep Tonight. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps this channel grow and keeps these true horror stories coming. Alright, let's dive into 3 unsettling Halloween stories you'll never forget. Trick or treat. After midnight, I was 13 that Halloween. At that age, I already felt too old to be out trick or treating. But my little brother begged me to take him. My parents agreed, gave me a flashlight, and told me I was in charge. So I threw on a hoodie and we went out into the neighborhood. At first it was fun. The streets were packed with people. Houses were decorated. Lights were on. And you could hear kids shouting trick or treat from every direction. My brother ran up and down driveways, dragging his candy bag, while I stayed closer to the street and waited for him. It felt busy, alive, safe. We kept going long after most of the kids went home. By the time we started back, most of the porches were dark. One by one, the houses shut down for the night. The noise disappeared too. It was just the two of us, walking down an empty street, our bags stuffed full of candy. When we got home, we dumped everything on the kitchen table and started sorting. Candy everywhere, wrappers crinkling, my brother bragging about his haul. I remember feeling relieved we made it back, even though it was close to midnight. That's when someone knocked on the door. It was quick and sharp. 3 knocks. I figured it was a late group of kids. I opened it right away. 2 kids were standing on the porch, masks on, but no candy bags, no pumpkins. Their horns were empty. I waited for them to say, trick or treat. They didn't. They just stood there, silent. Something about it didn't feel right. I closed the door slowly, locked it, and told my brother to head upstairs. He asked what was wrong, and I told him to just go. A few minutes later, another knock. This time it was slow and heavy. 4 knocks. Silence. 4 more. I crept to the window by the door and pulled the curtain just enough to peek out. The porch was empty. Driveway empty too. But the knocks kept going. Slow, steady, like someone was right there, even though I couldn't see them. I didn't open the door again. I just stood in the dark, frozen, listening until it finally stopped. The next morning, the porch was covered in frost. That's when I saw the prints. Not shoes, not boots, bare feet. 2 sets, standing right where those masked kids had been. The last candy bag. I was 16 that Halloween, and my parents were going out for the night. That left me in charge of the house, and, of course, the candy bowl. At first, I didn't mind. It actually felt kind of fun to hand out candy on my own. The evening started busy. The doorbell seemed like it never stopped ringing. Groups of kids came in waves, superheroes, witches, tiny monsters with glowing plastic masks. Every time I opened the door, the porch filled with laughter and footsteps, and I could hear voices carrying down the street from other houses. It was non-stop for a while, and my candy bowl was emptying fast. As the night dragged on, things slowed down. By 10 o'clock, it was mostly quiet. An occasional knock here and there, but nothing like before. And by 11, the street outside had gone completely still. I remember standing by the window, looking out, and noticing that every other porch light on the block had already been turned off. Ours was the only one still shining. I stood there debating whether to switch ours off too when I heard it. A knock at the door. Not the doorbell, just a slow, steady knock. I opened the door, expecting maybe a couple of older kids trying to squeeze out one last round of candy. Instead, I saw her. It was just one girl, standing completely still on the porch. She looked maybe 12. She wore a plain mask, nothing fancy, and in her hands, she held a pillowcase. I grabbed a handful of candy from the bowl and dropped it in. I expected the bag to sink, heavy from the night's haul, but it didn't. It barely moved at all. The bag was nearly empty, like no one else had given her anything. I hesitated, waiting for her to say something. Trick or treat. Thanks. A laugh. Anything. But she didn't. She just stood there, silent. The longer it went on, the more uncomfortable I felt. Finally, I closed the door and locked it. I tried to brush it off and sat back on the couch. But the unease stayed with me, a knot twisting in my stomach. A few minutes passed, maybe 10 at most, and my curiosity got the better of me. I got up and pressed my eye to the peephole. The porch was empty, but the pillowcase was still there. It was standing upright, right where the girl had been holding it. Only now it looked heavy, full. The fabric bulged like it was packed with candy. I froze, staring through the peephole, trying to make sense of it. Finally, I opened the door quickly and stepped outside. The night air hit me cold, and I looked up and down the street. Not a sound, not a single person in sight. Just dark houses and an empty road, and the bag sitting there on the porch, stuffed full. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. Something about it felt wrong. Like if I reached down and opened it, I wouldn't like what I found. So I left it. I closed the door, locked it, and tried to ignore it. All night, the thought of it sat in the back of my head. A bag full of candy, left behind by a girl who never spoke a single word. When I finally worked up the nerve to check again in the morning, it was gone. No bag, no candy, nothing left on the porch. To this day, I can't explain what happened. The mask, that wasn't a costume. I was 17 that Halloween, walking home from a party. It wasn't far, maybe a 20-minute walk, and I'd done it 100 times before. The night was cold, and most of the houses I passed were already dark, their decorations swaying in the wind. A few porch lights still flickered, but the rush of kids had already died down. The streets were quiet. Just the sound of leaves crunching under my shoes. That's when I noticed him. Across the street, walking in the same direction I was. At first, I didn't think much of it. People were always out late on Halloween. But then I realized what caught my attention. The mask. It was one of those cheap plastic ones you get at the dollar store. Thin, shiny, with the elastic band around the back of the head. It wasn't scary, not by itself, but something about the way he wore it. Plain clothes, no costume, just the mask, made my stomach tighten. I told myself it was nothing, probably just someone walking home too. But after a few blocks, I started noticing the pattern. Whenever I slowed down, he slowed down too. When I sped up, his pace matched mine. He never crossed the street, never got closer, never fell behind. Just always there, walking parallel to me. I turned a corner. So did he. I kept glancing out of the corner of my eye, hoping maybe he'd turn off or disappear into a house. But he didn't. Block after block, he was still there. By the time I reached my own street, my chest felt tight. That's when I noticed something else. He wasn't carrying anything, just his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. I tried to act normal, but my pace picked up. My house was only a few houses down now. I forced myself not to break into a run, but every step felt heavier, every sound louder in my ears. The second I hit my driveway, I gave in. I sprinted to the door, fumbling with my keys, hands shaking as I jammed one into the lock. I shoved the door open, slammed it behind me, and threw the lock shut. Inside, I leaned against the door, gasping, my heart pounding. My mom looked up from the couch and laughed when I told her. She said it was just Halloween. Probably some kid trying to freak people out. I wanted to believe her. But the next morning, police cars were parked at the end of our street. Neighbors were standing outside in their jackets. I asked what had happened, and that's when I learned a house, just a few blocks away, had been broken into during the night. The description of the suspect was simple: a man in a cheap plastic mask. These are just 3 stories, but they prove one thing: you don't need ghosts or monsters for horror. Sometimes, the scariest part of all is who you might meet along the way. Thanks for watching No Sleep Tonight. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, sleep well.